אזרחי ישראל, אנחנו במלחמה. לא במבצע, לא בסבבים, במלחמה.
Israel is at war. It has come under terrorist attacks.
Who was responsible for the unthinkable security and intel lapse?
More than 300,000 Israeli reservists have been called up as the country prepares for a possible ground operation.
Israel and Hamas are at war. And this isn't the first time they have been at loggerheads. They have been perpetually at war for decades now. Multiple attempts at peace have been miserable failures. And while it is impossible to get into every single detail to understand the never-ending conflict in a nutshell, which is intricate and really very complex, let me simplify this by focusing only on major incidents that shape the conflict that we are witnessing today. Here is a list of all the topics that we are going to discuss. Attack on Israel. What is Gaza Strip and its history? Oslo Accords, a failed attempt at negotiation. Reactions of world leaders on the conflict, and what lies ahead. The attack by Hamas on Israel has shocked not only Israel but the entire world. But what is more shocking than its secrecy and the magnitude of the execution is the colossal failure of Israeli intelligence, the Mossad, which has been regarded as the most extensive, well-funded and sophisticated intelligence service in the entire world. And yet, Israel failed to see this coming. Palestinian militants attacked from land, air and also by sea. The attacks included firing of more than 5,000 rockets targeting Israeli military bases and defense systems in a single go. The sheer volume of the rockets is said to have overwhelmed Israel's famous Iron Dome defense system. Also, hundreds of Hamasi militants entered the Israeli towns after breaking the blockaded Gaza Strip, and this has shattered the Israeli illusion of their own security. The militants killed 300 people, injured about 1,500 and took 150 as hostages, including soldiers, tourists and civilians, which include elderly and even babies. And there are horrifying and sickening videos circulating online of hostages being taken with their hands tied, some hooded, and blood-soaked bodies being taken away by Hamasi militants. And the most painful and horrifying part is that the whereabouts and the fate of these captives is hanging by a thread, especially with Hamas announcing that they'll kill a hostage every time there's an attack on them by the Israelis. The Gaza Strip is a 365 square kilometer territory that has been under Israeli control since 1967, along with other Palestinian territories like the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Over 2 million Palestinians live in the densely populated territory, most of whom are refugees who live in camps across the Gaza Strip. And needless to say, the humanitarian situation in Gaza is just pathetic and miserable. There is increasing poverty, unemployment, food insecurity, and sporadic epidemic outbreaks, with little or almost no access to medical care. Nearly 80% of Gaza's population depends on aid to survive. But the question is, why is this area in such a mess? It is because since Israel took over the territory, it has taken full control over its airspace, its territorial waters, its border crossings, and also its trade. So Gaza is often referred to as the world's largest open-air prison. In the early 16th century, the Gaza Strip was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. During the World War I, it was captured by British forces. Following the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, Egypt took over the newly formed Gaza Strip, and it was later captured by Israel in the Six-Day War in 1967. So as we can see, this particular strip of land has been passed on from the Ottomans to the British, to Egyptians, and now the Israeli rule over the last century. When the British colonial rule came to an end, the conflict between the Jews and Palestinians intensified. Later, as the Egyptian army began its invasion, tens of thousands of Palestinians took refuge in Gaza after they were forced out of their own homes. And the influx was such that the Gaza's population tripled to around 200,000. For 2 decades, the Gaza Strip was under the Egyptian rule. But after the Arab-Israeli war, in which Israel was attacked by 5 surrounding Arab nations, Israel single-handedly won the war despite being attacked from all sides and captured the Gaza Strip in 1967. It is not that there have been no attempts to end their decade-long conflict. In September 1993, Israel and Palestinian leaders signed the Oslo Accords to recognize each other's existence and to end their long conflict. Exactly 2 years later, in September 1995, the Oslo Accord II was signed. Several steps, including the phased withdrawal of Israeli military and the transfer of authority to Palestinian administration, were agreed upon, and a final treaty was to be reached in another 5 years. The Oslo Accord gave limited control to the Palestinian Authority over the West Bank and Gaza region. On the other hand, it allowed Israel to annex a lot of areas of the West Bank. One of the most important provisions of the accord stopped both sides from engaging in violence against each other.
That the security of the Israeli people will be reconciled with the hopes of the Palestinian people. This brave gamble that the future can be better than the past must endure.
Yasser Arafat, the former president of Palestine and the leader of the Palestine Liberation Organization, or the PLO, Shimon Peres, who had served as the PM and also as the president of Israel, and Yitzhak Rabin, former Prime Minister of Israel, jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1994 after the first Oslo Accord was signed. Palestinian groups, including the Hamas and Islamic Jihad, which is yet another militant outfit that operates from the Gaza region, wanted none of this and refused to recognize the two-nation agreement, which they believed was only favorable to the Jews and unfair to the Arab population. Just 2 years after signing the Oslo Accord and winning the Nobel Prize, Rabin was assassinated in 1995. Hamas and Islamic Jihad maintained that a two-state solution would bring an end to the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their historic lands seized from them when Israel was created. Similarly, there were a number of Israeli leaders who opposed the Oslo Accords. The current Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu happens to be one among them. 30 years on, that is since 1993, negotiations between the Palestinians and Israeli leaders have continuously failed. Now coming back to the current situation, Hamas's attack on Israel has triggered some very complex political shockwaves around the globe. All major nations, India, the West and US, have stood by Israel and condemned the attack, while nations like Iran, Qatar, and as we are talking about terrorism, obviously Pakistan, are openly celebrating the attack on Israel and congratulating the Palestinian terrorists and promising to stand by them until Palestine and Jerusalem are liberated. The most interesting part is that Pakistan is an US non-NATO ally and the US is the face of Israel. Not that the world counts on Pakistan's stance on any global affairs, but its double talk is as confounding as always. President Putin has blamed the US for the ongoing conflict and called it the failure of US policy in the Middle East. Qatar, which is a home to all Hamas leaders, has also held Israel solely responsible for the escalation in hostility and of violating the rights of Palestinian people. On the other hand, Turkey's Erdogan has called for restraint from all parties, clearly not choosing a side. But besides the attack, the biggest question is, how did Israel miss this? Even after the media reports claimed that Egypt did warn Israeli intelligence of a possibility of a terror attack just 10 days before the attack. Hamas has made it public that Iran supplied it with weapons and financial resources. That Iran backs Hamas was never a secret. Iran-Hamas relations have been growing since the new Hamas leadership was elected back in May 2017, promising that Tehran would provide $15 million annually. While Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei has denied any involvement in the attack, whether Iran admits it or not, the world knows that Hamas by itself is incapable of as draconian a step without tacit if not open support of Iran. While interestingly in the US, 2024 presidential candidates have blamed Biden for Hamas attack on Israel, suggesting that the $6 billion in oil revenue that Biden administration recently unfroze as a result of prisoner exchange with Iran were used by the Hamas to attack Israel. The Biden administration insists that the money is under strict international monitoring and can only be used by Iran to buy humanitarian aid and medical supplies. Moreover, the money has not yet been spent. Well, the politics on the issue can wait. But before that, there are more pressing questions that beg answers. And we shall now discuss them one by one. Israel has chosen the option of an attack on Gaza and destroying the Hamas's military capabilities by killing or capturing as many fighters as possible, and Israel is capable of doing it. But no matter how successful the operation is, the political ideology of the Palestinians, the population's demand for Palestinian liberation, and the resistance will always continue. Not only that, conducting offensive and counter-insurgency operations and street-to-street fighting in the complicated and densely populated Gaza will prove highly costly in the long run and will only affect Israel's economy. Also, the invasion would definitely cause very heavy casualties on both sides. Images of dead civilians will cause ripple effect throughout the Middle East and would possibly spiral into a broader regional war. The timing of this attack also raises many questions. It's as if the attacks were meant to sabotage the breakthrough in Middle East, Israel and US relations. Some media reports claim that Saudi has put the Saudi-Israel normalization talks on hold, while others claim that Israeli authorities have denied the reports and have asserted that the discussions are still in process. Well, we do not know for sure, but given the current circumstances, Saudi Arabia does not have the political room to negotiate with Israel, while hundreds of Palestinians are being killed by Israeli army in Gaza. On the other hand, the historic nature of the proposed deal is precisely the reason Iran may have been motivated to support Hamas's attack on Israel, even if US continues to say that there is no concrete evidence to prove Iran's hand in the attack. Having said that, Israel's next moves will be critical. Will more powers join in and escalate the crisis? Chances are yes. Netanyahu has already warned the Hamas of a long and difficult war ahead, and that Israel's fierce offensive against Hamas will reverberate for generations. Israel has announced a total siege of Gaza, and Netanyahu has cut off Gaza from electricity, fuel, water, and food supplies. Israel has announced a fearful ground offensive and mobilized around 300,000 troops near the Gaza border. Clearly, Netanyahu is in no mood to back off. The UAE has warned Syria to refrain from interfering in the Israel-Hamas war or allow any attacks on Israel from the Syrian soil. Leaders all over the globe are concerned that this war could spill over into neighboring Lebanon, as Hezbollah, which is a Lebanon-based and Iran-backed terror group, has already fired rockets into Israel. US has already sailed its warship, the world's largest aircraft carrier, near Israel in a show of support, and the US plane with advanced ammunition has already arrived on the Nevatim airbase. There have also been major pro-Palestine rallies and protests in countries that support Israel, so we can anticipate long-term unrest and clashes which seem impossible to predict at this point of time. What is predictable is that the war between Israel and Gaza will resonate far more widely in almost every corner of the world. Matters have only been escalating by the hour, and any hope of achieving harmony and lasting peace in the Middle East has been seriously damaged and delayed once again, and no one can predict what lies ahead or how long will the conflict last. That is all from my side for now, and if the content made sense to you about what is happening and why, please share this with your friends and family and hit that subscribe button to show your support. Thank you for watching.